Losing a loved one can be the most painful parts of life.
And grief is the natural process that comes after a loss.
Everyone has different ways of dealing with grief, and calling it good seems like an oxymoron. But after the death of most of her family, Heather Wolf is teaching us all about finding grace in your grief. Have a look.
So, my story, boy, 7 years ago, my life took a turn. My husband and I lived in Santa Barbara. We were having a really nice life. He had a great job. I had a nice interior design business there. And he came home one day and said, "We're moving to Las Vegas." Unfortunately, his mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, so we had to go. Fortunately for her, she passed 4 weeks later, so she didn't suffer. But what happened to us is the real estate boom, it fell out, so we had to stay. In those 7 years that we were there, I lost my entire family over a course of those years, and most recently my husband and my mom. So my husband passed away suddenly. He wasn't sick, we just didn't expect it. He was 56 years old, he was the love of my life. We had this great life planned, and in an instant, he was gone. My mother, who was 90, had lived with us for the last 9 years. And so everything that had happened, I still couldn't mourn it because I had to really step in and take care of her and make sure she was okay. She passed away a couple years ago, and when that happened, the grief door opened up for me. And there was days that it just felt like a tsunami would hit me. There was days that I literally could not get up because the grief was just so intense. My whole life that I had planned was gone. And I had been a caretaker for so many years, I didn't know who I was when I wasn't doing that. So it got a little drastic for me. I sold everything I had in Las Vegas, I packed up my car, and I moved clear across country to Asheville, North Carolina. I spent a lot of time in solitude trying to figure out what this next chapter was going to be for me. And what I learned was I had to move through all of the grief with grace. And the grace was really for me, to take the time to love on myself, to put myself first, to figure out who I am at this point of my journey. It wasn't easy at all, but I'm so glad that I did it because grief taught me what a beautiful gift it is. There's so much that you can learn from it. I realized that I had been holding back so much in my life because I was always taking care of somebody else and always putting other people first, that I got to figure out who Heather was. And what I found out through all of it was I am a caretaker. That's who I am. I'm here to love on people and to make sure that they're okay.
After several months in North Carolina, a longtime friend invited her to Reno, where she found a job at Fernley Estates, an assisted living and memory care in Fernley, Nevada.
And I get to love on 66 of the best residents in the whole wide world. I come to work every single day because of these people. These are the people that feed me.
She now empathizes with families and residents in a unique way, seeing a reflection of her life in theirs, with a special lesson to share. With great grief, great grace is just around the corner.
If there's one thing I've learned through this whole process and this journey, is that I have to be more graceful with myself.
Joining us now here at Lakeside Manor is Bobby Davis. He's the Director of Counseling Services at Infinity Hospice Care. Bobby, you saw in the story there, just an amazing woman, how she overcame, and grief is not something you get over necessarily, but you get through. What do you see working with families through hospice?
Sure, and exactly that. It's not something that we just overcome, boom, we're fixed, and that we process through stuff, but it's a journey, I think, definitely. We do everything from anticipatory grief with preparing when we know that our loved one is going to pass. What does that look like? How are we processing that? Things like that. To even after our loved one passes, then what does that look like? Because it's a new normal for us. We've had a significant loss, and so that piece of us is gone. So we do a lot of processing with the patients and families as well, just on what does that look like? And ideally, it would be nice if there was a roadmap, something we could say, we're going to go through anger or denial and these 3 or 4 things, and then we're going to be okay. But we know that's not the reality. You know, we see a lot of people who have to pick up and totally change their environment to overcome things, just like this young lady, you know. And so a lot of times it's patient or people and patients just kind of taking a step back and kind of letting themselves feel the grief. We don't always do that well. We want to put a face, you know, a strong face. And I think sometimes we limit ourselves when we do that.
How do you think people that are maybe friends or family members of someone who is going through grief, how can we be empathetic? Because it's we all are in this together. We're all going to go through death eventually. How can we help each other?
So I think one of the main things is just being understanding and letting them kind of go through the grief process and not expecting them to be okay and be at a better place within a certain amount of time. We're not very good at allowing people to feel their feelings and emotions and things, and so I think just being there for them, supporting them, encouraging them to be sad if they need to be sad, you know, or get angry if they need to get angry, and just letting them go through that so that they can really process those feelings themselves, and just support them, walking beside them kind of thing, you know, touching base with them on a regular basis. How are you doing? Mm-hmm. You know, what do you need kind of thing, I think is a huge piece of that.
So important. And what I love about Infinity too is the chaplain services. So there is a spiritual aspect of death for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And what does that entail?
So yeah, I mean, when we come to end of life, we really reflect a lot on our lives, and then also the spiritual piece and what that means to us and what we believe happens afterwards. And so we do have spiritual counselors who meet with patients and families on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Even after someone dies.
Exactly. And so we actually can follow a family up to a year after their loved one passes, just to offer support, prayer. You know, that's very comforting for a lot of people. I worked with one lady who she really struggled with losing her husband, and so the chaplain and I would meet with her about once a week and basically just talk with her, and he would pray with her just to give her that comfort kind of thing. We also do a celebration of life, you know, where we once a year remember everybody that has passed over the past year, and families get to come together and kind of remember positive things about their loved one, which is good. Also with that, sometimes, you know, it'll trigger an emotion or a feeling that they had, you know, and so sometimes they kind of revert back to getting sad again, but we're able to work with them and just process and kind of remember the good times that they had, the memories they built.
Absolutely. Sure. Death and grief, an important topic, a topic we don't really like to talk about, but I really appreciate you coming on the show, Bobby.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.